Hello viewers! Today I'm brewing rice wine with koji. In the last episode, by using koji kin, I made kome-koji by growing mold on steamed rice in a temperature-controlled environment. In this episode, I'll brew with kome-koji. If you like this video, please click that like button and subscribe, and please share this video wherever it is appropriate. I'm following the beginner's recipe on visionbrewing.com. That's the source of my koji kin. Since I'm new to brewing this kind of rice wine, I'm just following the beginner's recipe. And it seems like many of these steps are different than what I'm used to for makgeolli. So even though the concept is the same, a lot of the steps are just a little different. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. And the recipe calls this farmhouse sake or doburoku. So that makes it even more interesting to me because I'm interested in the rustic kind of brewing. This will teach me something about brewing makgeolli too. You'll see that later on in this video. So let's brew. All right, get started on day 0 with some sweet rice. 750 grams of sweet rice, glutinous rice. I'm going to try to wash this well, but gently. If you're too rough, it's going to take, the water will never get clear if you're too rough. So you want to be gentle. And I want to point out, I'm making a half recipe here. It says it's okay to do that on the Vision Brewing webpage for the beginner's recipe. It says it's okay to do a half recipe, and that matches the amount of rice I happen to have, so that's good. So as usual, it takes some time to wash the rice, but it's an important step. Point of this is to remove any dust, any bad rice grains, and to let it soak for 1.5 hours here. And after it's soaked, we're going to drain it for 20 minutes. I realize it doesn't even say that in the recipe, but I'm doing it. And I'm just using my bamboo steamer since this is a small amount of rice. And since I'm used to steaming it for 40 minutes, that's what I'm going to do. The recipe on visionbrewing.com doesn't actually say how long to steam it. So after 40 minutes, take it out, spread it out to cool to 30 degrees Celsius. That's 86 Fahrenheit. Want to spread that out. So by my calculations, this recipe will overflow my smaller jars, my 3.5 liter jars. So I need to use my larger 10-liter jar today. So I'm starting with 2 liters of water here. So this is a wet recipe, about twice as much water as rice. Something new for me here, citric acid. I'm adding 1/4 teaspoon of citric acid. This is a beginner's shortcut. It takes the place of the lactic acid. So this teaches me the importance of the lactic acid when I'm brewing makgeolli. Since I stir by hand and I'm stirring frequently at the start, that encourages lactic acid at the beginning of brewing. That's an important part of brewing here because it helps avoid contamination of the rest of the brew by having some acidity. So here's my kome-koji from the previous video. Hopefully it's going to work today. So I add it to the water. So that was made with 200 grams of rice. So overall I have 2 liters of water and 950 grams of rice. So the rice to water ratio is about 1 to 2 here. So like I said, it's a wet recipe. And I'm not going to stir this by hand. This is going to be different. But I am going to use yeast. So it does recommend using yeast, specifically even White wine yeast is good, and that's what I have, so that's what I'm using, a quarter teaspoon. I have plenty of room in the jar. This jar is actually too big, but that's what I have, so I'll work with it. And the ideal place for fermenting is a cool place, around 18 degrees Celsius, and dark, of course. So I put it in the basement. Look at it the next day. It seems too quiet. I'm not hearing the bubbling that I want to hear, but I'm going to stir it now. That's what the recipe says, to stir it every day. But because it's so quiet, I'm going to move it upstairs where it's just a little bit warmer, and I hope to hear some bubbling the next day. So on day 2, I do hear some bubbling. It's become soft very quickly. See, on day 3, the rice grains are breaking down even more. It's a little bubbly, and yeah, you can see on day 4, the rice grains are broken down even more. It's starting to get bubbly on top. That's good. Day 5. Okay, now it's even foamy. So it is fermenting. That part is working. Yeah, lots of bubbles. I continue to stir it every day as indicated. Now it's been a week. I recorded the sound inside the fermentation jar. Just listen to this. It is actively bubbling after a week. So you can see more and more there's a layer of clear liquid close to the top, but it's bubbling so much there's always a foamy layer on top. And then the bits of rice that are breaking down fall to the bottom. But now the bubbles are small. One thing I want to point out is that this time I realized that acidic smell is part of what tells me that the brew is fresh and progressing normally. So normally I get that from lactic acid. This time it was from citric acid additive. So that taught me something about the brewing process that I normally follow with makgeolli. Okay, it's day 14, 2 weeks, time to bottle. Okay, I boil my filter cloth. This is it. This is a 80 micron filter cloth, but I don't think it really matters. One problem here is that since my jar is so large, I can't really do what I usually do, which is just turn the whole jar over. This is too bulky to do that comfortably. I'm scared of dropping this. So it's a little awkward. I'm just showing you my awkwardness here. It's going to take several attempts to get right. Try pouring a little bit more each time, but I need to get all of it into the filter bag. So that's a little difficult. With this size of jar, I really should have scooped it out with a ladle instead of trying to flip it over. But eventually I get everything into the bag. A little messy. I end up spilling some of the sediment into the liquid that's supposed to be filtered. We'll get that with my funnel. And squeezing it, not too hard to squeeze. Let's see how much we have left. It is 131 grams, maybe a little bit more, but that is a good result, and what's left is very soft. It becomes a paste just by squeezing it. Just from that, you can tell that fermentation, what happened, that was successful. So that was a success. That shows that what I did in the previous video actually worked. It produced the enzymes that are needed for brewing. And I end up with 3 liters output of this recipe, almost 3 liters. Okay, so let's, I'm going to taste it right away. This is super fresh. And I taste it immediately. It has a thin, clean texture, soft, dilute flavor. It starts sweet and tart and ends with bitterness. And the alcohol is noticeable, so it's not super strong. So I'm going to put it in the fridge and taste it again after a few days. It's been 4 days and it's settled nicely. This is pretty clear, actually, light colored, not a lot of sediment. And I've mixed this 3rd bottle up because I'm going to taste it. So now it's time to taste it. So texture is pretty thin. Taste pretty sweet to start with. There's some sourness, and it ends pretty bitter. The taste is okay. It's just a little thin. It's a pretty soft flavor, and it would be good if it didn't have the bitterness at the end, which I sort of assume is my fault for making the kome-koji the way I did. That it didn't start off quite right, and I had to do it for a long time. So I didn't quite get. I ended up with those spores. And I think those are more bitter. So that's my fault. But what I do know is that it is possible to start off with koji-kin, grow kome-koji yourself, and brew something. This had no problem brewing. Converted the starch to sugar. It brewed. So the concept works. It's just I'm going to have to prepare my kome-koji more carefully to get a better result. So that's what I've learned from this. I'm glad I had a chance to try a different kind of rustic rice wine recipe. I want to stay rustic and brew something that you could do in a kitchen without a lot of specialized equipment. So there's a lot more experiments for me to do. There's a lot more for me to learn. Thank you for following this process with me on this channel. I appreciate it, and thank you for watching today.